coming out of the pressure on this one. Out of the prisons on this one. I know the pressure on this one. It's kinda high, I ain't gonna lie, but we coming out of anxiety. Sick and tired of hiding. Good God Almighty, you didn't die, so we could have anything less than more life. More life. Yeah. More life to my thing. More life to my thing.
Shopping assistance. Your style, your budget. Our services include online and local shopping for individuals and businesses, personal shopping, purchasing of company and office supplies, importing and exporting small packages across Jamaica and worldwide, and helping you find unique gifts and items for all events and occasions. Contact us at 876-919-5195 or shoppingassistance2015@gmail.com. Shopping Assistance, your style, your budget.
Are you feeling stuck in your career and unsure of your next move? Or are you a growing business struggling to manage people and build the right team? Hire and Thrive Consultancy is ready to support you. We help professionals stand out through resume revamps, LinkedIn optimization, interview preparation, and career coaching so you can show up confidently and competitively in today's job market. And for small and medium-sized businesses, we provide HR audits and optimization along with recruitment support to help you build strong, compliant, and effective teams. Ready to grow with clarity and confidence? Email us at hireandthrive@gmail.com. Connect with us on Instagram at Hire and Thrive or follow our WhatsApp public channel, the Hire and Thrive Hub. Hire and Thrive Consultancy, because thriving is intentional.
If you're ready to build confidence, strengthen your self-worth, and create healthier relationships, you're in the right place. I offer speaking engagements, coaching, and book design to help you grow from the inside out. Check out my books on Amazon and visit Linktree to book me or start your journey today. Now let's dive in. This is where confidence meets clarity. Welcome back to the Unfiltered by Jade. Today we have with us here two special guests. We have Kurt Mosley, and he is the association practice leader, and we have Neill Marshall, and he is the board chair. And we're going to be speaking about, the first 90 days in healthcare leaders or with leaders in terms of how leaders should should start companies in terms of when it is that they are starting a position. What are some of the criteria that we're looking for? How is it that they should manage it? Expectations. We're going to be touching on so many things. And this episode should be very interesting. So I want to first thank you so much both for being here on the platform.
Thank you for having us, Jade.
Yes.
It's good to be here.
Yes, I look forward to our conversation. So I want to jump into it. What does the phrase earned authority mean in practice during a leader's first 90 days? And even before that, why is it 90 days?
Well, it's a great question to start off with. When Neill and I first looked at our 90-day series, we sort of developed it further, Jade, into earned authority. And what does that look like in a practice leader's first few months? Well, it comes from behavior, consistency, and visibility. That's how you gain earned authority. And we found that our leaders that were successful earned credibility by understanding, if you will, the frontline humility. In that first 90 days, builds influence faster than authority. There's a book out that a lot of people have read, Jade. It's called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And when you get a new job, you have the title, you don't have to prove it. So that's where the humility comes in. And we found that employees follow leaders they trust, not just leaders with titles. And why the first 90 days in your question? We just found that this is President Roosevelt, when he became president during the Great Depression, he said, I'm going to be tested in my first 100 days. But we found in healthcare, it's really the first 90 days. And it's really the way to build your legacy for the rest of your career at that facility.
Quite interesting. What do small actions or what small actions often shape culture faster than strategy presentations?
Well, when we look at symbolic acts, and we talk a lot about that in our 90-day series, they communicate these priorities instantly. And there's a lot of pressure on our leaders to act during that first 90 days because, they're in charge and they usually have problems to fix. In healthcare, there's a lot of stresses in the industry. As everybody knows, in America, it's the number one employer of people in America. There's a lot of stress from a standpoint of, margins, money, taking care of patients, and these symbolic acts spread faster through the organization's informal messaging. Employees really interpret what leaders notice and what they ignore. And we always say these symbolic acts, these actions can define an entire leadership identity. We had one gentleman named Matt Fry. He arrived before day one. He would walk every hallway in the hospital, enter through public entrances, test wayfindings, and fix small visible issues before formally taking his office. And this was before he even started. And I think that was one of the greatest stories we had. He basically started before he had to, and he learned everything that he had to do. And there is a lot of pressure, like I said, to start these symbolic acts from day one. But we always caution them to make sure you understand what the issue is before you try to fix it. But our symbolic acts, what we like to have, just no fanfare, just action. Make sure it's visible, practical, and immediate.
Yeah, Jade, we one of the way that we built and what we built this 90-day series on was actually an interview we were doing with a guy by the name of Richard Parks. He is a CEO, hospital CEO out in West Texas, big, large, $10 billion hospital system. And we were talking to him and he said, well, guys, whenever I start a new job, my wife stays home and gets the kids ready and sells the house, and I move into the hospital. And frankly, both of us rolled our eyes, right? We're like, and I literally said, Richard, I know everybody works hard their first 90 days. And he said, no, Neill, I move into the hospital. Most big hospitals, Jade, have residence dorms where the residents stay when they're working 24 and 48-hour shifts. He moved in. And it blew my mind. Listen, I've interviewed 10,000 hospital executives, and it blew my mind. I had never heard anybody talk about something like this. So I said, tell me more, right? And he said, I said, what did you get out of that? And he said, my first day. We wake up, and the residents were making coffee. And, Neill, like all old people do, I asked them how they slept. And one of them popped up and said, I slept horribly. These mattresses are horrible. And Richard said, you know what? I looked at him and I picked up my cell phone and I said, I know somebody who can fix that. And he called the VP of facilities who's responsible for that. And he said, we're going to Costco today. Get 4 of your people in pickup trucks. We're going to buy 30 mattresses and we're replacing all the mattresses in the residence dorm today. So he said, Neill, I was there 7 years and did an awful lot while I was there. My last day there, people were still talking about the mattresses and still talking about the fact that I moved into the hospital. That's a symbolic act.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And it's also leaving a legacy.
Absolutely.
It's leaving a legacy. I like that you gave that example because normally or naturally what we see are leaders who are very performative, right? So they come in and they do this performance and you're seeing them, and most of the times the employees they are somewhat afraid or they're watching to see what's going to happen because, okay, after you perform, you can perform for so long, but then what next? So the person who you spoke to or you interviewed moving in show that, okay, we want to see, or I want to see how you are living here, how you're seeing here, and I can have that same experience. So it's not far-fetched that when it is that you come to me with a problem, I don't know what you're talking about because I don't have that experience.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. And while it might have been a little performative, it was also because he did it overall. He didn't do it for one day. He didn't do it for 2 days. He did it for 3 months, 90 days. It became authentic. And it was being able to do things that symbolic acts that are authentic, I think, are really, really important. If it's too performative, people just roll their eyes and keep doing what they're doing. But if it's really authentic and you really are showing, and frankly, if you're not talking about it, but just doing it.
Just doing it right.
Right.
Right. And that also helps to build the rapport with the employees.
I absolutely agree.
So that's quite interesting. Quite interesting. And that's quite a thing that you do have leaders who show that kind of presentation to who they're working with. So even when he left, people are still talking about it because it did mean something to them.
Interestingly, Jay, and I didn't realize it at the time, but as Kurt and I were writing these articles and interviewing these people, I literally was out walking my dog one day and a symbolic act popped into my head and I had forgotten about it. It was my first job out of college. I was an executive trainee and there were 5 of us executive trainees in this branch and they fired our CEO. So our new CEO was starting the next day, and we were all looking out the window watching him, and he drove up and he got out of his car and he walked through the parking lot and he picked up garbage his first day. And he walked into the warehouse, threw the garbage away, introduced himself, said hi to everybody. I'm Grover Martin. I'm here. Never said a word about the garbage. Not a word. Okay. But all of us executive trainees being kind of young and hard charging, we made sure that Grover Martin never picked up another piece of garbage again. We showed up 15 minutes before him, right?
Yep.
And we picked up the garbage.
Yeah.
And he literally never had to pick up another piece of garbage. And it was authentic to who he was. And again, he never said a word about it.
That's amazing, though. People really can pick up if it is that you're doing something for yourself or to perform, or it is that you're doing something because you're authentic in doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
Agree.
Many new leaders, right? They feel pressure to prove themselves quickly. Why do they spend more time listening than talking early on?
We've used the phrase, and it comes from John Wooden, who was a basketball coach at UCLA. He's a famous, one of the winningest coaches in NCAA history. But he used to use this quote, Jade. It was called "Be quick, but don't hurry." And he used that on his players, and people say, define that and be glad to. And what does it mean? It just means that leaders at the start, they have to move with urgency, but they can't panic. And a lot of times, acting too quick breaks that trust. Trying to fix a problem before you understand why the problem existed. Another point, Jade, trying to change the culture before you understand how the culture was developed. Also, waiting too long does create uncertainty. So we look, some of our leaders that have been very successful, they use calmness, thoughtfulness, that reassure organizations that during the transition, I'm going to take care of the problems, but I'm not going to move too quickly. We had a great story. Dan Castillo, he was the CEO at County USC Medical Center in Southern California, and he did midnight rounding. His first 4 or 5 shifts, he showed up in the middle of the night when a lot of things happen, obviously, in an emergency department, but a lot of things are very slow. But instead of coming in and he was tasked with restructuring the departments, but instead of doing it right away, he spent time understanding the hospital during these overnight shifts when executives are normally absent. And he found out a lot of things that his other executives, his team partners, weren't aware of. And it was a great, great example. People look at that. And again, I always say this, people aren't expecting you to be perfect at the start. They're looking to trust you.
Yeah. And they're also looking for your consistent behavior. So what you started with, that's what they're expecting you to follow through with.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Consistency is the key here. Responding to problems in the same way, listening to people in the same way, making decisions based on input consistently. It's very important during that first 90 days because they're looking for, like I said, not perfection, not the right answer all the time, but consistency in leadership.
What mistakes, though, can destroy credibility faster during the first 90 days?
What I would say is somebody who's trying to prove themselves too quickly. They come in and start telling people what to do. They start changing things before they understand them. They're trying, and there are. I mean, I get why people want to prove themselves quickly, but the reality is you don't have to. I think it's better to build that trust before you do it. You really need to understand the culture and understand things before you make changes. You need to understand the informal influencers. You need to speak more and you need to listen more than you speak. We had a CEO that came in and, most CEOs, when they're interviewing with the board, they ask, listen, am I going to have the ability to build my own team? And boards will almost always say, yes, it's, you're the CEO. You need to have a team you trust. Yes, you can build your own team. But there's nuances to that. So this CEO came in and within a very short period of time, Jade, understood that one of their direct reports as we say in Texas, they didn't G-haw. All right. They just didn't fit each other. And so he showed that person the door. Listen, I'm a very, very big believer that a CEO needs to be able to build their own team.
I believe so.
But there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it, especially early on. And what this CEO didn't do is didn't talk to a couple of key influential board members before they did it, didn't talk to a couple of direct reports and run it up the flagpole. They just did it. And what they didn't understand is this person was one of the most well-respected and liked people in the whole organization. And it blew this CEO, and he never recovered. Again, I believe that he should have been able to make that change. But if he had talked to a couple of board members, they would have said, wow, this person's really, really, really well respected. If you're going to do it, you need to make sure you do it in a really good way, right? I mean, and what does that mean? You know what? Go to them and say, hey, for whatever reason, we're not working. I'm going to give you a year. You go find another position that really fits you. And we're not going to talk about this publicly. You're just going to go be looking behind the scenes, keep working. Nobody knows that you're being fired, and you will find a new position. Do something that is above and beyond gentle, or face the consequences.
And we had another CEO named Jim Decker. It seems like a small story, Jade, but in his first meeting, there was a new Dunkin' Donuts in town. So he thought, I'm going to set the tone here. And he went to the new Dunkin' Donuts and he got donuts for their first meeting. But little did he know, because he was new, he changed. There was a local donut vendor that had been putting the donuts together for the meetings for the last 20 years. And it seemed small, but when he came in, he saw people picking at him. And afterwards, luckily, he had somebody that was a new colleague that came up to him and said, hey, we've used this local donut maker for the last 20 years. And instead of saying, well, geez, that was too bad, he went to the donut maker, told him the story. He said, I'm sorry, I didn't know what I was doing. And the donut maker told him which person liked which donut. And he came up the next time and he said, listen, I changed the donuts, and here's the donuts that everybody likes. He found out which donut each person liked. And it was a small mistake, but to the people he worked with, it sort of indicated he didn't understand their culture yet, or didn't know them before he made that move. And he corrected it immediately. But those are small things that sometimes, if not corrected, can resonate into big problems.
Very true. And it also shows that leaders also need to do their homework.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I was interviewing him, he said, I misread the donut culture. And I said, what? And then he told me the story, and I was like, okay. And it was just like I said, it resonated with me.
Yeah, that's important. If a leader listening today is starting a new role on Monday, what is the single most important thing that you would want them to remember?
Well, I think show up visibly, be visible and authentic. As we mentioned earlier, listen before making changes. Pick maybe one symbolic act that communicates your value, and then focus on earning trust before driving transformation. We had one CEO, Jade, that he was brought on, and he was the first week, the board sat down with him and said, we need a new strategic plan. And he said, okay. Then week 2, they said, how are you working on the strategic plan? He said, I'm fine. I need a little more time. And finally, I think it was week 3, he was doing rounds, and he was rounding with some of the nurses at about 10 o'clock in the evening. And one nurse came up to him and said, you're the new CEO? And he said, yes, I am. And he said, can I offer some advice to you? And she said, absolutely. So what would that be? And he said, well, we don't need a new strategic plan. We need IV pumps that work to help our patients get better.
My God.
And he said, okay, that's my symbolic act that communicated my values. I understand we needed a new strategic plan, but our number one goal here at the hospital is to take care of our patient base.
Yeah.
And that act communicated his values, and also let the nurses know that he listened to them, trusted them, and wanted to make their lives better at the same time.
Yeah, that's good.
Can I add one, Jay?
Sure. Go right ahead.
Thank you. So One of our favorites is a gentleman by the name of Jay Robinson. He runs 2 Kaiser hospitals out on the West Coast. And your question was newly hired CEO or newly hired person coming in, what can they do? So what he did, he met with all 42 leaders in his organization in the first 90 days, all 242. And he didn't ask them to come to him. He went to their offices, which I thought was big. The second piece of this is he asked several questions. He would either take notes or he had his assistant with him who took notes. But the final question was, in 90 days, if things are better, what has changed? And by asking everyone that question, and allowing things to bubble up, he got his marching orders. He got his first 90-day marching orders based on what they said. The things that bubbled up to the top that were consistent among groups, that's what he attacked.
That's nice. I'm listening to you both and I'm thinking about the organizations I've worked with. And I'm asking myself, have they ever done something like that to represent or to make us employees feel as if we are also a part of the organization? Because the truth is, a company can't run without employees.
That's exactly right.
It's quite essential that it is that the persons who work for you are treated well and are valued and are showed that, because then work production will be better.
I absolutely agree. As a matter of fact, my mother was in the hospital recently, and so I was with her, and she had to go to radiology to get a CT scan. Right. And so the person that came up and got her, and I went ahead and went along, just, it's my mom. Right. I mean,
right.
And, this guy ended up being, as far as I'm concerned, he was the most popular person I had ever seen in a hospital. He literally knew every single person he said hello to. I'd never seen anything like it. And, I asked him, I said, he said, yep, I'm through the hospital all the time. I know everybody. But see, you can't run an organization without people like that.
Yeah.
That are just so bought in and so they're just so important. And if you end up doing the wrong thing and not understanding them, they're going to leave. They're going to go find someplace else to be.
Sure will.
And then you've lost. I'm telling you, this guy I thought he was the most popular guy in the whole hospital. I'd never seen anything like it.
Yeah. And he made a lasting impact when they were there just for that. He made a lasting impact. There are also companies who I've been a part of or I've heard about who some of the employees have never met the CEOs, never met the head of the company. They have not been visible at all.
Jade, one of the most embarrassing. I was doing a search for somebody that runs an emergency room, right? So usually it's a director or VP level, but they run all of the emergency room, and it was a big hospital. I can't say which one, but I was doing the search, and so I was calling people, and I ended up calling somebody who was a director of an ER where I had put the CEO in that hospital. And so I'm talking to the director of ER, and I said, hey, do you know the CEO? I worked with the CEO or whatever, and I said the CEO's name. And she said, I've never met him. And I said, how long have you worked there? Like 2 years, 3 years. I was embarrassed.
Yeah.
I was embarrassed that the CEO didn't know the director of the ER. She said, yeah, he doesn't really come out of his office.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Jade, that's why we stress. We help CEOs transition. That's part of our complement to our search process that we do. But we always tell them, somebody will say, give me 1 or 2 tidbits here. Visibility, be visible, be out there, be walking around, introducing yourself, eating in the cafeteria with your other employees, talking to people on your way in and out of the hospital, walking through the parking lot. It's just very important that first 90 days.
It is. And it's also important, even after the first 90 days, to continue that. Not just the lapse on it because, okay, I've done it in 90 days, so let me now ease back and not do it. It's imperative to continue doing this, to continue. Just like how the employees show up and they do what they need to do as a CEO, as a leader, it's important also for you to show up for the persons who are working under you, to let them know that, hey, I might be a CEO, but I'm still hands-on.
Yep.
I'm still here. I'm still available. If it is that there's something pressing and you need to come and you need to talk about it, I am available.
Yes. I make mistakes. I own up to them.
Mhm.
Hopefully I won't make them again. Gather input, but move forward. That is key. And then, as you said before, just even past the first 90 days, it's to be consistent and to be the same during your whole tenure, which leads to your legacy.
And I'm going to end with, so it's important for the behavior of the leader to be consistent and for there to be visibility where leaders are concerned. And having humility also fosters authenticity, which leads to a leader not being always performative. Yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. Neill and Kurt. Is there anything else that you want to say to leaders out there who are listening and who really do need help navigating new roles that they're going into?
Well, I think just some additional points. That first 90 days, it's long enough for people to get to know you, and they're not testing you at the same time, but they're looking at you. And I think most importantly, decide intentionally how you want people to experience you. And as you said earlier, be visible before you try to be transformational, and build trust first before you try to overhaul the whole system.
Lovely.
Yep. And Jade, I would just say, if folks want to get to know us a little bit and understand what we do, both Kurt and I are both active on LinkedIn. You can look at us on LinkedIn or come to our website, healthsearchpartners.com. Again, that's healthsearchpartners, just like it sounds.com. And we've got all of our articles and information and bios and things like that on there.
Awesome. Lovely. Thank you so much again, Kurt and Neill, for sharing with us and giving us some insight into leadership and the things that leaders need to navigate. It doesn't matter where you work. These all apply to you. These 90 days are imperative, they're important, and they also help to set a foundation for what you're going to do or how you're going to proceed in the role that you're playing. So thank you so much for that insight that you have given to us.
Thank you for having us.
Yep, we enjoyed it, Jade. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you so much. And I want to say thank you to my listeners on the Unfiltered by Jade. And we'll be back next week, Tuesday. Thank you.
Coming out of the pressure on this one, out of the prisons on this one. I know the pressure on this one, it's kinda high, I ain't gonna lie, but we coming out of anxiety. Sick and tired of hiding. Good God Almighty, you didn't die, so we could have anything less than more life. More life, yeah. More life to my thing, more life to my thing. Staying clear of low vibrational folks, bro. I want no parts of that low vibe you might bring. Yeah. Love the Lord with all your heart, God, your heart not fall apart. Certainly just understand that hurt people, no such thing as perfect people. Sometimes long distance love is all you can give to certain people. If they don't know that your presence a gift, absence might be the appropriate response. Fresh out of emotional attention, fresh out. You will not get close enough, won't let me stress out. If I don't go stoic, you gon' let me crash out. Yeah. We coming out of the pressure on this one. Out of the prisons on this one.